This CyCast is provided to you by the Iowa State Letter Winners Club, bridging the gap between legend and legacy by engaging in our past to invest in our future.
Welcome, everyone, to our latest CyCast, and we have a wonderful guest in Chris Bono, a three-time All-American and national champion wrestler at Iowa State from 1994 to 1997. And if you don't know Chris's history at Iowa State, he was one of the most dominant wrestlers in the nation during his time. He amassed a 74-7 record in his last 2 years with a pair of conference titles and twice making the national championship match at the NCAA championship. Chris owns the fifth most wins in school history with 130, and he is a recent Iowa State athletics inductee to the Iowa State Hall of Fame. Welcome to our show, Chris.
Hey, thank you, buddy. I appreciate you.
Well, I tell you what, first question I got to ask is, tell us your reaction when Jamie Pollard had told you the wonderful news that you're going to go into the Iowa State Athletics Hall of Fame.
It's undescribable, right? I mean, going back for Heskets, and I always follow along and seeing what's going on, and you always think someday maybe I could get in, and and then you get that call from Jamie, and it's emotional. It's all of a sudden you start. I think when he told me, I thought about that lead center wrestling room and all the workouts, and that's kind of where it all went back to. Where I cut my teeth, and it's just a huge honor. One of the best ones in my life.
Yeah, well, you definitely deserve it, Chris. And let's go back to your recruitment. You're from Florida, and growing up in Florida, what was wrestling like in the state of Florida back then? I know it's really good, and I think a lot of people don't realize that. But what was it like back in your day in the early '90s?
It was bad. There was no junior high wrestling. As a junior high kid, I was always working out with the high school teams. I only got to compete in USA Wrestling stuff. And then I saw one college match before I went to college, and that was, I remember Arizona State was on TV one crazy late night. My old man woke me up, and I came downstairs, and I got to watch an Arizona State college match. So yeah. I'd never even seen a college wrestling match,
Wow.
before. So it was quite an experience for me to get away and go wrestle in college.
Well, like you kind of mentioned to me before, you were recruited to Iowa State by Jim Gibbons, who was the head coach at Iowa State from 1987 to 1994. But then he resigned, and they got a new coach in Bobby Douglas, who obviously is a Hall of Fame coach here at Iowa State. How did that go down when, going in, to your freshman year, where you basically had to get re-recruited, didn't you?
Yeah, I got that phone call from Bobby. I didn't even know Jim had resigned, and I'm arguing with Bobby saying, no, Jim's my coach. You don't have the internet. You don't know he resigned. You don't know any of that stuff. Yeah. Right. And he's telling me, no, I'm the head wrestling coach. And I said, no, I'm Jim Gibbons is. And he's like, put your dad on the phone. And that, if anybody knows Bobby, right, he cut right to the chase. He said, put your dad on the phone, and basically said, listen, I'm the new coach. And if your son wants out of his scholarship, no problem. And, and that's when I got back on the phone and said, no, coach, I came to Iowa State for a lot more reasons. You know what I mean? And I want to go up there. And really, it was about commitment. I made a commitment to the school. I made a commitment to the athletic department. I made a commitment to, the staff. And, I was grown up that when you make a commitment, that's what you do. And that was, and I am 1,000% happy and glad that I stayed with that commitment because, that place has meant a lot to me.
Yeah. Well, your first year you redshirted here, Chris, and then in 1994, you found your way in your lineup. A lot of people, I believe Iowa State finished 10th that year at the national championship in 1994. Kind of early growing pains in Coach Douglas's, career at Iowa State. You just got started. But in 1995, which was your sophomore year, you made All-American. Did you start feeling that you guys were kind of turning this around, getting back to where Iowa State standards, were back in the past?
Yeah, it was, there's so much tradition and history there that you come back from the national tournament, finishing 10th, and you feel defeated. You know what I mean? And when we had a young group of guys, we had a lot of guys returning off that team. And I remember we had a young little guy from Arizona, Alfonso Cruz, came in '95 and tore things up. But it was, it was, we had to uphold the standard. You know, you can't walk around that wrestling room without seeing the tradition and the history. And, you know, you don't want to be that group that, we're the worst group to come through that place. So we were tight, man. Our group was tight. We're still tight today. And we decided to turn it around and let's go try to make something of this.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the 1995-96 season, which was an amazing year for you. But let's talk about the team-wise first, because, you know, I don't think there's a lot of expectations going into that year for that team, especially what just happened the year before. And I always tell Iowa State people that one of the most amazing things I saw here in my career was that you guys only had 5 NCAA qualifiers that year. All 5 got All-American.
So that was 96.
Yes, 96. I'm sorry. Yes. Yep.
So Beaner, we that year, unbelievable. I remember Clody Tate too would have been in there, but Clody tore his elbow.
That's right.
Dislocated his elbow late in the year, and we barely got him back, and we went down to the Big Eights, and it may have been Big 12 by then. I don't remember. It could have been the first year of the Big 12 in '96, but we went down and we couldn't get him to be 100% healthy. I believe we finished last, if not in the Big 12 out of 5 teams, and we only brought 5 guys to the NCAA championships. I think all 5 of us won the conference tournament. I could be wrong. And then we went to the national tournament with 0 expectations. And I remember we waking up, reading the newspaper, right? Again, no, we were reading the newspaper. I'm like, dude, I think we had 10 matches. I think we went 9 for 10 in the first 2 rounds.
It was crazy. Crazy. Yeah.
And then the next thing you know, we got 3 guys in the NCAA finals and 2 guys for 3rd and 4th or something. Barry may have taken 5th, but it was I wouldn't mind coaching a team like that now, but it was amazing.
Well, when you think about only having 5 NCAA qualifiers and then finish 2nd in the NCAA championship, I mean, that just, I don't know if that's ever happened before.
Right. It's crazy because you didn't think about it at the time. And now that, I've been in the game a long time and you're at the NCAA tournament, you're like, wow, that was an unbelievable accomplishment for what we did. And again, it was an amazing run, but you credit to Bobby, man. We never did he let on throughout the year that, maybe we didn't have a good team. Maybe we only had 5 individuals, but he had us believing we can win the NCAA championships individually and as a team.
Yeah.
Every step of the way.
Well, Jason Neary made the finals that year. Dwight Hinson made the finals that year. You obviously made the finals that year. And if I remember correctly, everyone wrestled higher than their seeding going into the tournament. Well, let's talk about your 1996 NCAA championship, where you won it. You beat Ohio State's Charlie Becks. A guy coming from Florida who never even watched a collegiate wrestling match until he was almost out of high school, and to actually win the NCAA title at 150 pounds, what was that feeling like?
Well, it was unbelievable, right? First of all, I almost didn't make it, right? When I was there my freshman year, getting my butt kicked, and I never got a take. I don't think I got a takedown until like February of my freshman year, and I tried to leave, again, but that commitment word came up, and my old man said, yeah, you can leave, but it's a long walk from Ames to Florida, and then I'm going to tell you that you made a commitment. Then you're going to have a long walk back there. So I decided to stay and stick it out and try to get better. But what people don't know much about Mike is Charlie Becks is the guy that put me out of the NCAA tournament my freshman year. We wrestled in the pigtails in the Dean Dome in North Carolina, and he beat me in the pigtails. I was out before the tournament even started. We say I wasn't even in the tournament, right? I was in that play-in match.
Yep.
And then I wound up wrestling in the NCAA finals. And again, the win was I don't like myself for this because I really probably never enjoyed it till, the last 10 years or so, because I kept competing and I was always looking for that next thing. And I was always trying to get better, and I never sat back and enjoyed it. And, when people introduce you as a national champion for the rest of your life, it's actually a pretty cool deal.
Well, it's an amazing deal for you, and we're so proud of you. Obviously anyone that can be a 3-time All-American and a 2-time national finalist, obviously has elite ability. If you had to pick something, Chris, that maybe sets you apart from other wrestlers, what would that be?
Well, there's 2 things, right? It was definitely the way I worked. I wasn't a good wrestler. I tell everybody that. I wasn't very good. But the way I worked and my competitiveness, it was to me, when I shook hands with somebody, it was there's no way I'm losing, right? And I always tell everybody my mantra was I deserve to win because I truly did deserve to win. The way I worked and the sacrifices I made and how much it meant to me, Mike. I think that's another intangible. It meant more to me than anything. I would have done anything to win a national title. I would have cut my arm off, and that's the way I worked, and that's the way I tried to live my life to try to do it.
Yeah, and I think most wrestlers will tell you that their first couple years in college are really hard. It's hard because they're probably not mature enough to withstand everything. But when you look back at your last 2 years, Chris, once again, I think you only lost 7 times. 5 of them were in overtime, and now heading into your senior year, where Lincoln McElravy was back after a Olympic year. And you guys had some epic matches, and he was, let's call it like it is. He's one of the greatest wrestlers. At that time, he was one of the greatest wrestlers in the nation, and you had a chance to go battle with him. In your senior year, you only lost 3 times, and all 3 were to him. And then you meet him in the national championship match, and it went to overtime. And kind of talk us about that final match you had as a Cyclone.
Yeah, Mike. A little bit about Lincoln. First of all, I've wrestled a lot of Olympic champions. I've been to the World Championship. He is the best guy I've ever wrestled in my life.
Yeah.
So when you say, in that era, he was the best guy I've ever wrestled in my life. I think I'm 0-30 against him in my career from 14 years old through the Olympic stuff. So what I credit Bobby Douglas for was going into my senior year, we came up with a plan like you have to wrestle this guy 5 times. If you wrestle Lincoln McElravy 5 times in the course of the year, you're going to beat him. You're not going to worry about the first 4. You're going to beat him when it counts. And we were on track to do that, right? We wrestled, I think it was home and home in dual meets. Then we had an all-star meet.
Yep.
Then we had the Midlands, and then it was going to be the national finals. That's what the plan was. But Lincoln got hurt, had some bad concussions, and we only got to wrestle, I think, in 1 dual meet and Midlands.
That was it. Yep.
And that was it, right? And then we get to the NCAA tournament, and I lose in overtime, and I come off the mat, and if you know Bobby at all, the first thing he says to me is like, "I told you we needed 5 matches." Again, if you would have had 5, you would have won. You know what I mean? So it was, but yeah, unbelievable competitor. You know what I mean? If you got to lose, you want to lose to somebody that's better than you. He was clearly better than me, and that was. But I gave everything I had, and I got no regrets.
You think about it, Chris. I mean, I think you and Dwight are the only 2 Cyclones that can claim they won a Big 8 and Big 12 title because you guys switched affiliations there. But
hey, Mike, I claim I'm the last Big 8 champ for the school, and I think I'm the first Big 12 champ.
I think that's right. Yeah,
that's a little trivia. Trivia.
Yeah. Well, let's talk like it is, Chris. Your career ends. You're a 2-time national finalist. You're a 2-time conference champ. You're Iowa State Athlete of the Year. You almost won 2 national titles. I mean, did you ever dream that would happen when you got to Iowa State?
No, because when I got there, I stunk. Right, I was terrible. I was just hoping to make the team. I remember when I won a wrestle off down on the lead rec center floor, and I was like, I actually might start. You know what I mean? And it was baby steps, man. You can't think about winning a national title till you get on the team. So for me, it was once I won, and you know what, too, bud? When you're around greatness, you want to be like those guys. I was around some great mentors, man. Eric Aiken showed us how to get to the finals. Matt Johnson was one of my mentors. Never got to the NCAA finals. He may have been a 4-time All-American, 3-time All-American, but I was around people that wanted to be great, and that was what it was. And when I couldn't make the team or I didn't All-American my first year, I was going to do anything to try to be like those guys, and then that's where it started. You know what I mean? Then we had guys making world teams. I'm like, that's what I want to do. And, I got to go to the world championships in 95. And I'm like, I got to make this world team now. And I got to be Olympic champion. And that's being around it, right? Being around it is very, very important.
What made Coach Douglas such a great coach?
Man, I'll tell you, first of all, he's a straight shooter, right? He didn't care about your feelings. I think deep down inside, he cares about your feelings, but he wasn't ever going to let you know that. He told you what you needed to be great. He gave you a roadmap, is what he called it. And he said, follow it. And what else I really liked about him was he wasn't a motivator. And what that did for us was you had to be self-motivated. And if you weren't self-motivated, right, you weren't going to win. And that's just like in anything you do in life. You're not going to always have a cheerleader there to pick you up, or you're not going to always have somebody telling you to get your work, your job done at work. You've got to be self-motivated. You got to want to be great. And that's what he did. And he's shown me a lot, or he's taught me a lot of lessons along the way. And I'm forever grateful for everything he's done for me throughout my career. I owe it all to him as well.
Yeah. Well, as your career ended, Chris, obviously you were, setting yourself up to an amazing international, career in wrestling, because you weren't done yet. As a 3-time world team member and all the other accolades you made post Iowa State, what would you say was your most proudest moment in your international wrestling career?
I have a hard time answering those things because I really never have thought about it, but I've beaten Olympic champions in tournaments, and what does that mean? You didn't beat them at the Olympic Games, and I made 3 world teams and came up really, really short, really bad performances. I don't know, right? I don't know if I have a defining proud moment internationally, even though I won a lot of things. And, one of the things I could tell you was I always toed the line, right? When there was a tournament, I wanted to go. I wanted to wrestle. I wanted to go overseas. I didn't care where it was, who we were wrestling. I've never ducked a match. I never did anything like that. We showed up, we wrestled, we came home, we took 2 days off, we showed up, and when's the next time we're going overseas? And the fact that I was able to compete till I was 35, 36 years old and had that hunger, I think that's what I'm really proud, really, with myself.
Of course, we're talking about Chris Bono, one of the greatest wrestlers in Iowa State history. And, Chris, what was kind of cool about your career, too, was once you got done, you stayed in Ames. You competed with the Cyclone Wrestling Club, and you trained. And you also got the opportunity to be in the room with future Cyclones. And you stayed connected with the team, with Coach Douglas. And you had a chance to see and mentor Cale Sanderson when he came in. And I guess what I got to ask you, Chris, when he came in as a freshman, did you see all these amazing capabilities that he had, or were you shocked at the end that Cale did what he did at Iowa State?
I'm shocked. I'm shocked at what he did at the end because nobody's ever done it, right?
Yeah.
But the one thing that Cale had over everybody was his competitiveness. When you saw him play a flag football game, when we played basketball, when we did the little things, he was more competitive than anybody. And a quick, just a little quick thing about Cale was I remember we used to have to put 2-3 guys on him, in the room to get him a workout. And, I think at the end of the practice, typical what Bobby would do was Cale got taken down. I'll never forget it, by Perry Parks. He got taken down at the end, and Bobby, as soon as Cale got taken down, Bobby had to practice. Right. Put some, some heat on Cale a little bit, like, how are you going to react? Cale, he started saying, hey, everybody start jogging. We're going to condition. Cale followed Perry Parks around for 10 minutes until Perry would go one more go with him. And he's like, no, right. And he's like, no, I think it's the only takedown Perry ever got on him in his life, to tell you the truth. Right. But it was like, and Perry would not wrestle him. He's like, nope, I got it. I'm done. Practice is over. And Cale followed him around until Perry's like, all right, Cale. Cale took him down, like, Perry led him, and all right, Cale's like, I'm happy now, I'm done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, but you don't see that with the average person. You don't see how much practice meant to him. You don't see that competitiveness. So, I wish, right? I was a young coach at the time. I wish I was, we're training every day to try to be around those guys now and trying to create 4-time, right? Because he was very, very special. And I wish I kind of documented some things and went through it and, had some notes about it. But, we've never seen anyone again, and I don't think you'll ever see anybody again do what he did.
Yeah, well, 3 years ago, Joe Heskett was inducted to the Iowa State Athletics Hall of Fame, and you had a chance to be around him in his career here at Iowa State. And what type of wrestler was he at Iowa State? He was amazing. That's a thing people don't realize, that obviously he didn't have Cale's accolades, but he was up there, wasn't he?
Yeah, poor Joe, right? Joe got overshadowed really, really big by Cale, but Joe was 3-time finalist. I think he only had 6 or 7, 8 losses in his whole career, right?
Amazing.
But the talk was never about Joe. It was always about Cale, and rightfully so. And Joe did a great job of managing it. Joe was unbelievable. Joe had more talent than almost anybody I've ever been around in wrestling. Joe could wrestle. He could flat out wrestle, and we know what a great kid he is, and he went on and did some great things. And I pray for Joe every day with his physical condition, but very, very. I can't believe I got to be a part of those kind of teams and being around those individuals.
Yeah, and obviously, Chris, you had a chance to be around our program a lot, and now that you've done amazing job as a wrestling coach in your own right. You're now the current coach of Wisconsin, and I know it's hard to get back to Iowa State because of your job duties. But I guess the last question I got to ask you is how excited are you to come back for the Iowa State Athletics
Man,
Hall of Fame?
I'm super excited, right? Off air, I was telling you, my youngest almost was a Cyclone. They actually got my $250 dorm deposit that they never gave back when she decided not to go. But we were locked in for her to go, and we couldn't have been. My wife's also an alum, and we couldn't be more proud. We were so excited to go back, basketball games, and to see her and things like that. And we've competed against those guys a little bit, right? And you try to win, you try to do that, but it's a very, very special place. I got married there, in the Sheeman building, and my babies were born there. So Ames, Iowa was special. I can't wait to get back in the fall. And like I was telling Jamie, we the Bono crew from all over the country will probably be there in full force, and it's going to be one big party, and we're going to have a lot of fun.
Well, Chris, thanks for joining us on our CyCast, and we can't wait to see you this fall.
All right. Thanks a lot, buddy. I really appreciate you.